Welcome in to the 48 Minutes Podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best two panelists in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Worldby Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 175, the Jamal Wilkes episode, as the 4-time NBA champion started his career off by winning the 1975 Rookie of the Year award as a member of the Golden State Warriors, a team we'll be diving into a little bit deeper on today's show. With the regular season set to begin on October 21st, we continue our series of 2-a-day shows. They'll be shorter, and we'll release 3 shows each week leading up to opening night. Each show will feature one team from the East and one team from the West. And please note, we'll be going alphabetically, so please don't read into the order of the shows. So let's keep it rolling with the Brooklyn Nets from the East and the Golden State Warriors from the West. Now, last year, the Nets finished 26-56 on the season, good for 12th out East. The year prior to this, the team finished 11th out East. So 11th out East 2 seasons ago, 12th last year. I don't know, Bruce. Something tells me this team would be lucky to keep pace and finish 13th out East next year.
I agree with that. I think it's going to be lower than that. But look, let's try and say something positive about the Nets, okay? I know it's not easy to do. As we know, the Nets were one of the 4 ABA teams that were absorbed into the NBA for the 1976-77 season, meaning this will be their 50th NBA season as an NBA team. Now, they've missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons, and it's pretty certain they'll make it 3 in a row this season. You mentioned they were 26-56. They were 12th last year. This year, they're taking the elevator all the way to the bottom floor. Number 15 with a thud. They drafted 3 guards in the first round. They acquired Michael Porter Jr., Haywood Highsmith, and Terrence Mann while saying goodbye to Cam Johnson and D'Angelo Russell. You know, Porter's going to get buckets, and if healthy, he'll average 20. Which is probably the number of games that the Nets are going to win as well.
Yeah, good point there. Worldby, what's your thoughts on this young Nets team?
It's going to be a struggle, as Bruce mentioned. I think they're going to be battling the Wizards for that bottom spot. But, I mean, here's the thing I think about when I look at the Nets. There's a difference between rebuilding and tanking. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the Nets are in a tanking mode. They're just rebuilding right now. They're going young. You can question using all those draft picks. You can question who they pick, but clearly the plan is, from my perspective, that they're trying to rebuild and not just going into the tank hoping for a strong lottery pick. I think it's going to work out that way, but I don't think that's their intention. Last season was a struggle, and like you said, it's only going to get worse. But think about this last season. They started out the first 6 weeks of the season with a top 10 offense in efficiency. And then there was a point for about a month, about 4 weeks, right before the All-Star break, when they had the best defense in the league in the terms of efficiency. And yet you take those 2 moments, those 2 stretches, and they were still in the bottom 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency by the time the year was out. That's how bad they were if you take those little stretches out of their season. So playing the young guys that they're playing, it's not going to get any better. And you're trying to develop young guys, but where are they going to get shots when you have Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas on your court?
That's what I was going to bring up. Cam Thomas is back on a 1-year, $6 million deal, and he cannot be happy about it either after averaging 24 points a game last season. So real curious how he comes into training camp and even on media day, speaking to the press for the first time, how that goes for things. So buckle up. It could be a wild ride with Cam Thomas this year because he's obviously going to want to put up big numbers again this year and really not worry about probably most of the other guys' development because he's looking to get paid as an unrestricted free agent the following summer. So not sure what to expect of him. The one guy I got to keep an eye on is Nic Claxton because I think this is a guy that could be a standout for this Nets team and moving forward be a possible trade piece for contending teams looking to bolster up their center position down the stretch. So keep an eye on Nic Claxton. And, they drafted, multiple guards this year in this year's draft. Let's see which ones maybe emerge and blossom as the season goes on. But outside of that, Bruce, I don't have much else to say here on this Brooklyn Nets team.
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth when you brought up Claxton. He's one of their few decent players. He's signed for 3 more seasons at fairly reasonable money, somewhere between 20 and 27, over the next 3 years. So maybe they can do him a favor and trade him to a team where he can play some meaningful games. As for that Cam Thomas situation, here's the deal. Because they're not paying him a whole lot of money, it's a really kind of a low risk deal. So if he starts going off and becomes a disruption or becomes a guy who's taking, opportunities away from the guys they want to build, they can sit his butt down on the bench because he's only making $6 million, right? So if he becomes a problem for the coach or for the management, $6 million is like, nickels and dimes in today's NBA. So I don't really see that as a problem. But what's funny? Brooklyn and Manhattan are only a few miles apart, but the Manhattan Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets, the gap between them has never been wider. And as I said a few weeks ago when we were doing our power rankings, plenty of good seats should be available at Barclays Center. If you're in Brooklyn and your favorite team is coming in to play the Nets, you should be able to get some pretty good seats for cheap.
Yeah, no, that is one of the positives of having a poor team out there on the floor for a season is you can get some bargain tickets to see some pretty good teams and players that you're looking forward to seeing out on the East Coast. Now, next up, we've got the Golden State Warriors. Last year, the Warriors finished 48-34, good for 7th out West. World B, we recently discussed how this Golden State team was a much different team once Jimmy Butler arrived in town. So now that Steve Kerr and the Warriors will have Jimmy on board for his first full year, what are you expecting from this good but aging group of players?
Well, I think you said it there. They're good, but they are aging. I think this is their last chance to really make some noise in the Western Conference. I don't think they have much more time left. The production that they had when Jimmy Butler came there is hard to ignore. 22-5 when Butler and Curry were on the court together. That's really impressive. Now, the flip side is they only outscored opponents by about 5 points per 100 possessions. So it's not exactly dominating the opposition. Wins and losses are what counts. I get it. But you think about that margin of how much they outscored opponents by when they were on the court together. It's not dramatic. So there is a possibility it could come back to earth, if you will. Where's the offense going to come on this team besides Curry? That's the biggest question mark here. He's still got it. We saw what he could do last year when he was healthy. He had a couple of 50-point games. I predicted on one of our shows recently he's going to have another 50-point game this upcoming season. But you know what? They're going to look for Butler to be a scoring load. And if he's going to do that, he's got to be a better shooter. He shot just about 48% from the field last season when he came over to Golden State, but under 30 from three-point range. The big deal is he, obviously, as we've known over the years, got to the free throw line at will. Unbelievable. Almost 8 free throw attempts a game with the Warriors. And he shot about 88% from the line. So he was getting his points there. If they can find consistent scoring to help Curry out, I really think they have a shot to make one more run, another 50-win season, and maybe get a run deep into the postseason.
Bruce?
As we record this segment in the second week of September, the Dubs are probably the most unsettled team in the entire NBA. Yes, they still have Curry, they still have Draymond, they still have Jimmy, along with Brandon Pajemski, Buddy Hield, and Trace Jackson-Davis. But this Jonathan Kuminga free agent saga is holding up the team in its quest to fill out the roster. I mean, Al Horford should eventually join the Dubs, and De'Anthony Melton probably will too. But until the team knows what Kuminga is going to cost them, they're kind of frozen because of the salary cap. And I think there's going to be a ripple effect on this because I think this Kuminga situation is going to create some hard feelings if it drags out too much longer. His future teammates may resent the delay as they figure out their family situations. I mean, look, especially Horford, he's got kids in school. Will Draymond Green give him the Jordan Poole treatment in practice once he signs the deal? I mean, whatever his salary may be. So, yeah, I see this, I see a chemistry problem bubbling up below the surface here. And again, with volatile Draymond on the team, if Kuminga is seen as selfish by some of these guys, and again, look at Al Horford. We know he wants to sign with those guys. We know they have an agreement for him to sign with those guys. But this business with Kuminga is keeping him from getting his personal situation settled. That's a big deal, okay? You're asking him to move 3,000 miles away. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, it's not the only problem, but I see that one as being something we definitely need to keep our eye on.
Yeah, that could be a serious problem, especially because of the fact with Kuminga, you don't want that to boil over too soon. Because the way I look at it with Jonathan Kuminga moving forward into next year is that this could be a Warriors team that kind of, once again, kind of hangs around the play-in conversation for the first half of the year. And then I think the hope would be that you could trade Jonathan Kuminga around the deadline and make another impactful splash. It won't be a big one like Jimmy. That was different. But I think you can still make an impactful splash by trading Jonathan Kuminga around the deadline time to a different team, maybe looking to try to re-sign Kuminga for the long term. And maybe, bring some fresh life into this group halfway through the season, and they could pick up that momentum and carry it all the way to the playoffs. So keep an eye on just the whole chemistry issue with Kuminga. I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce, because I think they've got to hold off on the drama getting too big too soon with him. Kind of let him play a little bit of the season almost as like a showcase for other teams. Hopefully he plays well with the Golden State Warriors, and then they're able to ship him out of town and find another veteran that can be impactful next to Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Steph Curry.
We talk about injuries with certain teams, Philadelphia being one of the examples, any team that Kawhi Leonard plays on is another example. So look at the age on this team. And it was mentioned earlier in this discussion. Mm-hmm. Steph turns 38 in March. Butler's 36. Green turns 36 in March. If Horford signs, he's 39. Now, Steve Kerr knows his guys as well as any coach can know their team. So if Kuminga gets himself squared away and buys in, they're going to all be on the same page. But, their best rebounder from last season, Kevon Looney, is now in New Orleans. So that's a loss that is really sort of, it's not enormous, but it might be significant because he was like an under 30-year-old guy. And on this team, that makes you a young pup. So someone like Trace Jackson-Davis is going to have to step up, a little bit on the boards. And look, I respect the Warriors and their culture. I'm concerned about the injuries. There are very few gimmies in the West. And the Warriors always get the opposing team's best effort. It's almost like they're the permanent champions because when teams play Golden State, they come out like they're playing the champs. Yeah. So I could see them finishing as high as 4th. I could see them finishing 10th. I'm not really sure, but it will be a fascinating storyline, whatever goes down in Golden State this year.
Well, one of the things about what you just mentioned, they could finish 4th, they could finish 10th. That could be just a difference of 2 or 3 wins, by the way. It's so competitive there. They could be, they may just lose a game and suddenly go from having a great season to having a mediocre season. It's that competitive in the West. I'm going to take the side of Kuminga for a second here. The Warriors need him. If you're Jonathan Kuminga and he's been in and out of the doghouse with Steve Kerr last year and you got all this potential, I'm going to try and get the best possible deal I can because I don't know what my future is with this team or going forward. I think eventually it's going to get figured out. I think he's going to end up back in Golden State because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, Bruce, they're aging. They need youth. They need depth. And he's a guy, not only does he provide depth, he can provide scoring unlike anybody else other than Curry and maybe Jimmy Butler on that team. So I think they ultimately need each other. It's just a matter of working it out and stuff like that. But yeah, I think the difference between 4th and 10th or whatever could be 2 wins.
Yeah, great point there. And I agree with you guys with the youth movement with Jonathan Kuminga because if they don't start developing young talent like Jonathan Kuminga, the Golden State Warriors are going to find themselves like the first team we discussed here in the Brooklyn Nets without much talent back into the lottery and doing a full rebuild. So hopefully that this team can put together one last run here, make things exciting for a playoff series or 2 next year. Now that will do it for our wrap up and review of the Brooklyn Nets and the Golden State Warriors. On our next 48 minutes two a day, we'll examine the Charlotte Hornets. World B, don't get too excited there. And the Houston Rockets. We'll hope you'll join us as we'll continue to keep you up to date, but go shorter than 48 as we hit every team. Take care, everyone.